The biggest point on this as to whether the LDI was a cause or not for the size of the move that you triggered comes back to the point that you were captain of the ship. We'd had a decade and a half of very low rates, juiced further by an enormous amount of borrowing during the pandemic. And I would argue anyone involved in the markets knew that our finances were in a perilous state. So you have to gauge how much of a risk you take with them. And to say, the LDI problem wasn't my fault would be like the captain of the Titanic saying, it's not my fault that there are icebergs out there.
So this report says that 2/3 of the market movement was down to the issues with the LDIs. The Bank of England, the night before the mini budget, announced the sale of £40 billion worth of gilts. Another thing that can help trigger such a market move. The markets were already moving, interest rates were already rising, they were rising internationally. This tinderbox was going to be set on fire at some point.
So shouldn't you have been more careful? Do you not look back and think, I didn't have a pair of aces, and yet I went all in? There's no acknowledgement I'm hearing that you could have done things a slightly different way.
What could I have done differently?
You could have sequenced things. You could have done some of the supply side reform and only some of the tax cuts in the first step and signaled to business the rest was going to come. It's not my job to come up with that. I'm just saying, if you look at the point, what was the outcome? The outcome wasn't what you wanted, and yet you're saying you did everything the only way that it could have been done.
I'm saying that with the economic institutions constituted the way they are, it is pretty much impossible to deliver what I would describe as a conservative economic policy.